So welcome back again. In this exercise, you are supposed to rewrite the code we did in our previous lesson, which was in Swift, and redo it again in Objective-C. Now, this is one of those exercises that I really encourage you to attempt it on your own, simply because doing delegation, even though in terms of a concept is exactly the same thing, but it has some of the stuff that you may not really grasp in the very first attempt. And doing them once again in Objective-C is going to show you some more insights into using them and coding it. So I really encourage you to actually try it on your own. I'm going to pause the video now for a few seconds. This is the time for you to pause entirely and try it on your own, and then come back to the code and the solution that I have and try to compare it with what you have done. So let's get started. In the interest of saving time, I have actually made parts of my application already. I've made my interface builder, the buttons, I've made my segue, I have connected all these different outlets. So in my view controller, I have a label, received message label, I have a go to green action. In my view controller.m, I have to program the body of this method. In my green view controller, I have the text field, and I have a go back action, and of course I have to program the body of this one. So let's first get the things we know out of the way. In my view controller.m, I'm going to go ahead and say import the green view controller, and in my go to green action, I'm going to say self perform segue with identifier, and the identifier I gave it was called green segue ID, and I have no senders. So that's one part of the problem. The other part obviously is the preparation. So I'm going to say void prepare for segue, and again you could check for the segue identifier, or you could skip it just like what I'm doing. I'm going to say green view controller green instance is going to be segue destination view controller, and that's about that. So far we managed to prepare getting our green instance, and we also got our segue to be performed. Now I'm going to go to the green view controller, and in the go back action I'm going to get ns string, and let's say text to send is going to be the name of my text field, the dot text. Obviously the value in it, I'm going to store it, and then I'm going to say self dismiss view controller animated true, and I don't want to do anything at completion. Perfect. So we got this far, and by now we should be able to launch our application, and it should manage to go from one view controller to the other one and do the basic stuff just the way that we expected it. In here I could go ahead and say go to green, go back. Perfect. So the next thing we need to do is we need to add the protocol to our application. So to do that, you can either introduce your protocol inside the body of one of your .h files, or you could do it the way I personally like to do, and that's adding a new .h file. So I'm going to say Command N, and here is a header file, and this header file I'm going to call it protocol. Remember, protocols, they don't have any logic, so all they have is actually the body of their declaration, and because they are declaration, they are like interfaces, so they are .h's header files. So in here I'm actually going to say import, and I have to import the foundation simply because without the foundation there isn't really much we can do. So the next thing is I'm going to say at protocol, and my protocol is going to be called sending message protocol. And this thing that you see in here, it essentially means that the sending message protocol conforms to NSObject itself. This is actually an optional thing. You could, if you wanted, to remove it. And the only method I have in it is this void, and it's send, and it's just called send. And the send is actually a NS string, and that NS string is called message, just like what we had last time. Now, as you might very well remember from our Swift example, one of these two view controllers, view controller.h and m, not the green one, they have to conform to that protocol, and the other one should use the protocol. So first, let's go and conform to it. I'm going to go to .h. I'm going to say, let's first import What are we importing? Protocol. Import protocol, and then my view controller is a subclass of UI view controller, and it also conforms to sending message protocol. Now that I have it conforming to sending message protocol, I have to be including those methods, which is essentially this one, in the body of my implementation, which is in my .m. So in my .m, and as soon as it's going to give me an error in here itself, I have to add that. So I'm going to go in here and say, well, this one is in here. So whenever somebody calls send from the delegates who are delegating to you, being called view controller, this function should run. And if this function does run, I'm going to say received label dot text should become whatever we received, just like the last time that we had done that. Now, the other thing that we had to do was we had to go to green view controller and say, hey, this one is using the send message protocol as a variable. For that, I'm going to say at property, and that property is going to be non-atomic and is going to be of the type ID, which does conform to, what does it conform to? Sending message protocol, which I have to import it. I'm going to say import protocol, and it is going to be sending message protocol, and I'm going to call it delegate. So what is this? This line is essentially the one that we had in Swift, which was var delegate of the type sending message delegate. That was that, and we have it in here as a property, which is this one exactly. And that property, since we don't know its type, we're going to put it as an ID. In Objective-C, we are saying that this is an ID which does conform to this. It is called, of course, delegate, and it is non-atomic. We will talk more about the atomic and non-atomic and retain and assign at the end of this section. So keep this one for now the way it is. Now, I have that property, and the next thing I could do is I could go to my view controller.m saying, when you make the green instance, do a green instance dot delegate to self. So delegate the tasks from this one to here being my view controller. And finally, in my view controller.m, I'm going to go ahead and say, every time you're going back, do self.delegate send. What do you want to send? I want to send this particular text. This is exactly identical to what we did for Swift. It's exactly the same thing, but written in Objective-C. When we are going back, we get the delegate and we use its method. We send something. Doesn't matter what that thing is. It is the one in the text field. In our view controller, we conform to this particular protocol, which means its methods, most notably this one, should be activated in here. It should have a function body in here. The body of it is get the message and put it on the label. And finally, in here, we are saying that when you are preparing for Segway, what you want to do is you want to say this new one, the new instance, delegates to here, being the view controller. So I'm going to run this, and if all goes well, go to green, hello from green, back, and it says hello from green. And that's about that, using protocols and delegation patterns in both the iOS with Swift and iOS with Objective-C. Let's keep that in mind. In the next lesson, we're going to move into something that is using an existing delegation from one of our outlets.